Do you really think? I give a fuck? Do you?
On the gun. He got 99 problems and the biggest one is me.
Do it with a bounce. Do it with a bounce.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Josie Daisy, back again with another episode.
Only here on 11 Alive, days of unanswered phone calls lead to a discovery that no family should ever face.
Absolutely. So a young woman was found dead in her Atlanta apartment, but now her brother wants answers. So he flew all the way across the country to try to find out what really happened to his sister. But now he says no one is listening to him.
A mother in Minnesota picks up her phone. She dials her daughter's number in Atlanta. It rings. No answer. She tries again an hour later, then 2 hours, then 3. By the next morning, that mother has called 17 times. Each call goes straight to voicemail. Each text message sits unread with no blue check mark. No reply, no sign of life. For 48 hours, a family waited while their worst fears grew louder with each unanswered ring. When police finally opened the door on September 30th, 27-year-old Josephine Tarwai was already gone. What happened in those 2 days? And why does nearly every answer her family has received since then seem to change depending on who's telling the story? Josephine Tarwai grew up in the kind of cold that gets into your bones. Minneapolis winters teach you to be tough, to keep moving, to find warmth wherever you can create it. Maybe that's why Josie, as everyone called her, always seemed to radiate energy. She was 27 years old when she died, but she'd already lived several lifetimes worth of experiences. She moved to Atlanta from Minnesota, chasing the dream so many young people chase. Building something of her own in a city big enough to hold her ambitions, Atlanta offered opportunities, connections, a chance to reinvent yourself if that's what you needed. Josie worked as a dancer at Gold Rush Showbar, located just 2 minutes from her apartment. It was steady work that paid the bills while she figured out her next steps. Dancing takes discipline, physical strength, the ability to read a room and adapt quickly. Josie had all of that, but she was more than her job. She had family back in Minnesota who loved her fiercely, a mother who called to check in, a father who worried, a brother named Joseph who would drop everything and fly halfway across the country the moment something felt wrong. She had friends who knew her routines, her habits, when to expect her calls. That's how they knew, almost immediately, that something was off, because Josie was reliable. She answered her phone. She stayed in touch. When days went by with complete silence, the people who loved her didn't wait around hoping for the best. They knew better. The family grew alarmed when Tarwai stopped answering calls on September 28th. Think about the timeline for a moment. September 28th was a Saturday, a weekend day when most people are relaxing, returning messages, catching up with loved ones. Josie's family tried calling. Then they tried again and again. By Sunday, September 29th, panic had set in. This wasn't like her. Something was deeply wrong. They needed someone to check on her immediately, so they did what any family would do. They called the Atlanta Police Department and requested a welfare check. Just send an officer to her apartment, knock on the door, make sure she's okay. But here's where the bureaucracy kicked in. After contacting authorities there, APD did not visit Josephine's apartment until September 30, 2 days after she was likely already dead. 2 days, 48 hours between a family's desperate plea for help and police actually checking on a young woman who'd gone silent. Now, to be fair, welfare checks aren't always treated as emergencies. Police departments have limited resources. They prioritize active crimes over wellness concerns. The system is designed that way. But put yourself in that family's position for just a moment. You know something is wrong. Every instinct is screaming at you that your daughter, your sister needs help right now, and you're told to wait. File the right paperwork. Go through the proper channels. Be patient. How do you sleep at night when you're being patient and your daughter might be dying? Welcome to Caught in the Web True Crime Stories. Kindly support us by subscribing to this channel and turn the notification icon. When officers finally arrived at Josie's apartment on September 30th, they found her deceased in her bedroom. The initial incident report labeled the situation no crime. No crime case closed before it even began. But Josie's family looked at the facts and saw something completely different. Joseph Tarwai, her brother, flew across the country to seek answers. He didn't wait for official reports or medical examiner findings. He got on a plane and went to see his sister's apartment for himself. What he found there didn't match the story police were telling. When we got there Thursday, we didn't want to go in. We thought it was a crime scene and didn't want to tamper with anything, her brother said. That's when I called a private investigator. The family hired Robin Martinelli, a private investigator with years of experience. If the police weren't going to take this seriously, they would find someone who would. 2 days after Tarwai's body was removed from the apartment, her family returned with the private investigator and were let in by apartment management. What they documented on their cell phones that day raises questions that still haven't been answered. Cell phone video from that day shows the lock on the door malfunctioning and the apartment in disarray, with clothes and belongings scattered across the room, a broken lock. An apartment that looked like something violent had happened inside, but it was what Martinelli noticed about Josie's body that disturbed the family most. The family's private investigator reportedly found signs that concerned them further, including broken fingernails and visible bruises and scratches on Tarwai's neck during a viewing of her body. Broken fingernails, bruises, scratches on her neck. Does that sound like someone who died peacefully from a medical condition?
We went there Thursday. We don't want to go in there and tamper with anything. So that's when I called a private investigator.
We knew there was a lot of cameras, there was a lot of footage, a lot of neighbors.
Now the family is relying on Martinelli to gather evidence, like the images of her broken nails the family wanted you to see.
She had some bruises on her bodies that were odd, and she also had some scratches. I'm just a private investigator, and in my opinion, it looked like there could have been a struggle. When I explained this to the police, they told me to show up and request an officer to come and get the evidence. And I did that, and nobody came, and nobody cared.
There were a lot of cameras, a lot of neighbors, and they were just dumbfounded by what had happened, Martinelli said. The private investigator tried to do what any responsible professional would do, turn her findings over to the proper authorities. Martinelli claims she tried to hand over potential evidence to police, but was met with silence. They told me to show up and request an officer to come get the evidence. I did that, and nobody came. Nobody cared, she said. Let me repeat that a private investigator attempted to deliver potential evidence in a suspicious death to the Atlanta Police Department. She followed their instructions, she showed up where they told her to show up, and nobody came. When you talk to Josie's family about their interactions with police, one pattern emerges over and over again. The story keeps changing. It's been just very confusing to get the facts, her brother Joseph Tarwai said. We're still looking for answers. The family reports that police initially told them one version of events, then later contradicted themselves with completely different details. Was the door forced open or unlocked with a key? Was there evidence of a struggle or wasn't there? Did they treat it as a potential crime scene, or did they immediately rule out foul play? Nobody seems to have a straight answer. Meanwhile, APD said preliminary findings suggest Tarwai may have died from a diabetic episode. A diabetic episode, a medical emergency related to blood sugar. Her family disputes that claim, saying she was healthy and did not have diabetes.
Something happened to her because of a lot of the false narratives that we've got. The police told us that her room was barricaded. Now they say her room wasn't barricaded. They told us that they forced entry into her apartment. Then they said that the apartment people opened the door with a key for them.
It's very demoralizing. Go against whoever we have to go against to get justice for Josie.
Now, Joseph tells me that he believes his little sister was robbed, or somebody that she was either talking to or didn't want to talk to hurt her.
Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you whether it's possible for someone with no history of diabetes to suddenly have a fatal diabetic episode. Maybe it happens. Maybe there are rare circumstances where that occurs. But combine that explanation with everything else, the broken fingernails, the bruises, the scratches, the disarray in the apartment, and you start to wonder if anyone actually looked at this case carefully before deciding what killed her. The official autopsy report from the Fulton County Medical Examiner still hasn't been released. These reports can take up to 90 days, sometimes longer. Until that document is made public, we won't know the actual medical determination of how Josie died. But here's what troubles me. Why would investigators immediately suggest a diabetic episode to the family if the actual cause of death hadn't been determined yet? Where did that theory come from? As of now, police investigators have requested surveillance footage from the apartment complex for review. That's good. That's a step in the right direction. Video evidence could potentially show who came and went from Josie's apartment in the days before her death. But it's been over a month now. What has that footage revealed? Has anyone even reviewed it yet? The family's left waiting for answers that may never come. There's another detail in this case that I haven't mentioned yet, one that makes everything else even more disturbing. Her friends said she was being stalked, but police say there's no foul play. A family member said Josie had told people close to her that someone was following her, that she felt unsafe, that she believed she was being watched. Were those fears ever documented? Did she file a police report? Did anyone take her concerns seriously enough to investigate while she was still alive? We don't know. What we do know is that she expressed these fears, and then days later she was found dead with injuries that suggest a physical struggle. How many women have to die after reporting stalking before we start believing them the first time? This happens over and over again. A woman says she feels threatened. She tells friends, family, sometimes even police that someone is making her uncomfortable, following her, not taking no for an answer. And she's told she's overreacting, being paranoid, too emotional. Then she ends up dead and everyone acts surprised. Josie's father said something that stays with me. I would tell my daughter Josie that her death will not go in vain. We will fight. A father shouldn't have to fight for his daughter's death to be taken seriously. But that's exactly what this family's doing. The family hopes their public plea will lead to a more thorough investigation and justice for Josephine Tarwai. They've gone to the media. They've hired a private investigator. They've created a GoFundMe to cover funeral expenses and investigation costs. They're doing everything they can to keep this case alive in the public eye because they know that once the news cycle moves on, once people stop paying attention, cases like this get filed away and forgotten. Let me lay out what we know for certain. A 27-year-old woman stops responding to her family on September 28th. Her family requests a welfare check. Police don't arrive until September 30th. She's found deceased. Initial reports say no crime, but her body shows broken fingernails, bruises, and scratches. Her apartment is in disarray. The door lock is malfunctioning. Friends say she'd been complaining about being stalked. The family disputes the preliminary finding of a diabetic episode, saying she had no history of diabetes. A private investigator finds potential evidence and tries to turn it over to police. Nobody responds. Now answer me this. Does that sound like a case that deserves to be closed quickly with minimal investigation? Or does it sound like a case that deserves a second look? I keep thinking about the apartment complex where Josie lived. Surveillance cameras everywhere. Martinelli noted there were a lot of cameras, a lot of neighbors. This didn't happen in a vacuum. Other people were around. Other people saw things. Has anyone interviewed the neighbors? Has anyone checked the footage from the show bar where she worked to see if anyone was bothering her there? Has anyone looked into whether she'd filed any complaints about harassment or stalking? These are basic investigative steps that should happen in any suspicious death. But the family's frustration suggests these things either aren't happening or aren't being communicated to them. I swear to God, if this were Minnesota, you call the police and within 5 minutes they're at your door. Her father, Joseph Tarwai Sr., said, "Here, we waited 45 minutes. They never showed up." That's not just frustration. That's a family watching their daughter's case get treated as less important than she deserved. Josephine Tarwai died on or around September 28, 2025. Her body was discovered September 30th. As I record this, it's been over a month, and her family still doesn't have definitive answers about what happened to her. They're still waiting for the medical examiner's report, still waiting for police to take their concerns seriously, still waiting for someone in authority to care as much about finding the truth as they do. "We're broken, we're crushed," her brother Joseph said. Their mother collapsed from grief just hours before the funeral. Can you imagine holding a funeral for your child when you don't even know for certain how she died? This family deserves answers. Josie deserves justice. If you have any information about what happened to Josephine Tarwai in late September 2025, please contact the Atlanta Police Department. You can also submit anonymous tips through Crime Stoppers. Every detail matters. Every piece of information could help. Because right now, somewhere in Minnesota, a mother is looking at her phone wondering why her daughter didn't answer that call on September 28th. A father is fighting to make sure his daughter's death isn't forgotten. A brother is demanding that police do the job they're supposed to do. They're not asking for special treatment. They're asking for basic competence, for thoroughness, for someone to care enough to get it right. Josie told her friends she was being stalked. She expressed fear. And then she died under circumstances that raised more questions than answers. Have you ever felt like something was wrong but couldn't quite prove it? Have you ever tried to get help and been told to wait, be patient, go through the proper channels? This family knows exactly what that feels like. Remember her name, Josephine Tarwai, 27 years old, dancer, daughter, sister, friend. A whole person whose life mattered, whose death deserves answers, and whose family refuses to stop fighting. Don't let this case disappear into the bureaucratic void where too many others have gone before it.